My name is Maddie. Welcome if you're new here, or welcome back. This is a little bit of a different format for me, so I'm going to try really hard to look at the camera. We'll see how it goes. Also, forgive my microphone situation. It's a little bit of a work in progress. But all that being said, today we are going to do a little bit of a chat through my planner notebook system from 2025, and then how that all worked out for me and what I am planning to use for 2026. So let's get into it. Also, I will add timestamps for the different sections of the videos in the description if you want to hop around. If you don't care about what happened this year and you just want to see what I'm using next year, feel free to jump to that section. So let's start by talking about what I was using at the beginning of 2025 and then kind of how that worked out for me and what I have settled into at the end of the year. So this is what we started the year out with. I was planning in pocket rings. I was doing daily journaling and memory keeping in a A6 Hobonichi. I think this is the English version. And I had a long form journal, kind of stream of consciousness style insert in my traveler's notebook. And I also believe I had a commonplace insert in here. I didn't use it a ton, but yeah. In terms of how everything went, let's start with the pocket rings planner. So I first got into rings planning in, I want to say October 2024. I just stuck with it coming into 2025, and this worked really, really great for me. I really like how customizable rings notebooks are, and there's so many great printables and stuff that's available to buy online, and I also had fun designing and making and printing my own inserts. However, in August of this year, I kind of just got really overwhelmed and fell off of using this, really just of planning in general. So I can't say that it was the fault of pocket rings by any means. I just kind of stopped planning for a month or so in there. And then when I was trying to come back to it, because I had a lot of tracking happening in here because I had missed such a big chunk of data. I don't know, it just felt challenging to get back into and not super approachable. I pivoted away from pocket rings. I also had trouble finding a cover that I really liked. This is the Moterm, I think they call it the Elite cover. It doesn't have the back pocket. And I think this color is really cute, but it doesn't lay flat. It's very square, and I think I prefer something that is a little bit more narrow in how this is or this is. I like a rectangle rather than a square. I actually prefer the shape of the regular, I guess they're just called the regular Moterm covers with the back pocket. I got one of those used, and I don't know, it was squishy and soft and more pleasing than this one. But I like the layout and the design of this cover. So that was another point that was a little bit challenging with pocket rings for me. But overall, big fan. It's very portable. It's very small. It's cute. It's fun to carry around. So that was pocket rings. Let's talk about I can never tell which side is up for this cover, but let's talk about my Hobonichi. In 2024, I worked really hard on developing a daily journaling habit, and coming into 2025, getting a Hobonichi was a reward for sticking with that for a while. And at the beginning of the year, I really did enjoy it. Let me find a page. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. I'll show you in more detail, but I really liked printing out pictures and using all my stickers. I would try and be in here daily at the end of the day normally, and I would I would decorate for a week in advance usually, and then kind of fill it in as I went. So I really liked this at the beginning of the year. I ran into some trouble in June, and I was trying to figure out what it was that made me kind of get out of my habit with this. And I was flipping through, I'll show you. And I noticed this page, Red Tien. So I got the Levin Trip Traveler's Notebook cover in standard size. And that, I think, played a kind of big factor in me moving away from this. I just became kind of obsessed with that cover, and I only wanted to use that. So after that point, I tried to use this notebook in a few different ways, and I backfilled some pages and things like that, but I could never really get back in the same groove that I had at the first half of the year. I did try using this as a planner for a while, and I actually really enjoyed that. Weirdly enough, I had been using fountain pens in here, but then using a ballpoint pen was just like, it does something to the paper where it's like crinkly, and I just really enjoyed that. But anyway, that stopped all the way in, I'd say maybe I made it to the end of June, but that might be stretching it. So this one is out of commission, but this cover is so cute. So I think I'm going to try and find like just an A6 notebook to put in here and use this cover. I've also seen people use the Weeks version of this cover as like a pencil case, which I think is such a good idea. I don't know if it would work with the A6 version quite as well, but that is where that ended up. Oh, also I did have some paper issues, as we all did, I think. Okay, so on to my traveler's notebook. Like I said, I started the year off with this brown cover, and then halfway through the year I got this red cover. But starting things off in the brown, this has been like a tried and true part of my notebook system for quite a while. I think I first got this in 2019, and I really got into using it when I was in school, like 2022, 2021, 2022 school year. And since then, I've stuck with it. I really like doing long form kind of stream of consciousness journaling in here. And that's really what I use this for the majority of the year. Even now, I still have an insert like that going. There's no decoration really. I might do some drawings, but it's just like pen and paper for the most part. And I did get some fountain pen inks and stuff that I would play around with, like using different inks for that writing. A commonplace notebook was a new addition for me in 2024, and I did keep using that all throughout this year. I wasn't in it as much as I would like, so next year I think I'm going to include some more like information in there. Big fan of the traveler's notebooks. I don't think they're really going to ever like go away for me. So just to recap, this was what we had at the beginning of the year. One traveler's notebook, Hobonichi A6, and pocket rings for planning. Fast forwarding to the end of 2025, right now, this is my current setup. We have a brown traveler's notebook, a red traveler's notebook, a personal rings binder. This is a Me Plus cover, and a M5 notebook. This is a Moterm cover in the veg tan leather. Let's start with the smallest one, the cutest one of them all. I don't remember what point of the year I introduced this, but essentially I decided I wanted to have a pocket notebook or like a everyday carry, small little notebook I could take with me even if I wasn't going to bring like a bigger planner. I had this Passport. It's Passport, isn't it? Yeah. I had this Passport TN, and I got I think these are the Kyoto charms this year, and I put the little fishy on here, and I just thought it was so cute. So I started out using this as my everyday carry notebook, and I just had like a blank grid notebook or dot notebook, whatever type of notebook, in here for little notes while I was on the go. And then at the beginning of the year, I had a quote notebook. I think I talk about this in one of my older videos, but it was just a notebook where I would write down quotes that like seemed thought-provoking to me. And if I had downtime while I was out and about, I would look through them and like think about them or talk about them with the people that I was with at the time. Big fan of this, very cute. It did start to get kind of beat up in my purse though, so I decided to switch to something else, which is where the M5 came into play. I had seen some people using this size. I really like how you can just like trim the bottom corner off and it'll fit into personal rings, so that intrigued me. I also really liked that you can get covers where there's like card holders and stuff, and so this could be my wallet essentially. So I got this and it replaced the Passport TN and my wallet. I've been using this since then. It's essentially the same thing. I just have like notes pages and I'll make little lists in here. Sometimes I'll plan out my day. What else do I have in here? I do have some like printables for daily, weekly, and monthly planning. But I've never really used this as a planner. I do intend to keep a monthly calendar in here just as a reference for when I'm out and about next year. And I will say this like is in my bag with my keys and stuff, and there's some indentations on the leather, but you really can't tell. Like it's very sturdy. I don't know if that would be true if it wasn't black though, but that is the M5. And then for my planner at the moment, when I stopped using pocket rings, that was in like August. And I don't think I really messed around with in-depth planning for about a month. But then at that point, I was lucky enough to find a personal sized Ranger, which the cover is away right now, or I would get it out for you. So I decided to use that as my planner, and I just approached that from like a very minimalistic style. I didn't really have any trackers. I didn't really have all of those things that were like a barrier to entry for me to pick up the pocket rings again. So I just kept it super simple. One thing that I did add at that point was a larger like notes, like a work notes section. And I had stuff in there for like my personal projects, my full-time job. So I really liked that because it let me use the notebook a bit more, and I just really enjoyed that. The only issue I had with the personal Ranger was that because it's like a chunky book, it has a big pocket on the front, it wasn't super portable. And Me Plus was kind enough to offer to send me one of their covers, so I took them up on that, and I have switched my planner and my like work notes section in a slightly more streamlined like page count. I cut down on the pages into here right now. So this is my planner and my work notes. This has been working out well so far. It is a lot smaller and a lot easier to carry around, and it fits in my bag better. And then in terms of the traveler's notebooks, I mentioned that I bought the red Love and Trip TN in June. So at that point, I switched the setup of like the commonplace and the long form journaling inserts into this notebook, and I just used them in here for a while, and I was happy with that. But I like deeply love and have quite the emotional attachment to this brown cover. It is very well loved, and so I wanted to get it back out. I realized that I did have some extra inserts, so now I'm actively using both of these guys. But in terms of what is in each of them, let's start with the red one. So my first insert, pretty much when I stopped using the Hobonichi, I still wanted a way to memory keep daily. So I started using this vertical weekly traveler's notebook insert. For me, this was like an easier, more minimal option because it is such a small little column that you have to fill in for each day rather than a whole like A6 page, which wasn't too much of a challenge, honestly, but this was just like extremely manageable and extremely easy to keep up with. And even if I didn't do it every single day, I could usually like remember enough things to fill this in. Plus I got to use all of my stickers, and I think it's cool that you can use these type of inserts in a few different ways. Like I just would write notes about the day, or you could do it more of a time tracking, time blocking approach. I used up this whole notebook, and then I kept my like stream of consciousness journaling situation in here. And then this is a new edition. This is a Baumkuchen monthly, and it's just an undated monthly, and I'm using this for like a gratitude journal, gratitude or like little moments that made me happy throughout the day. And I just started this at the beginning of December, so I am still working on getting in like a habit. It's hard to do this one-handed. Here we go. I'm still working on getting in a habit of like using this. It's definitely something that I want to continue to experiment with. So that's the red one. I put my commonplace in the brown cover. Like I mentioned, I haven't been using this as much as I want. I started this May 25th, 2025. So I guess I finished the first one at the beginning of the year. But this is my second dedicated commonplace notebook. I've been enjoying it. Started every time. I started putting ink swatches in here as well, and I include a lot of things like quotes or excerpts. Am I saying that word right? Definitely going to stick with this, and I would like to include some more information in here so that I'm using it a bit more next year. I think I'm going to add more of my like reading, book notes, book reviews, and that type of thing. And this one that fell, this I started May 5th. I don't really know how to explain this one very well. It's like extra ephemera. So when I went on trips or things like that, I would collect ephemera and then use it to do my journal spreads. if I had extra that I don't want to throw it away, especially for something like a lot of this is from my trip to Korea. So that was like special. And even if I'm not going to use it in my journal spreads, I wasn't like ready to just throw it in the trash. So I decided I would just kind of collage it all in here. Yeah, it's been fun. I have some more stuff I need to add in here, but it's pretty basic. And then it is, like, I anticipated this getting pretty chunky, so I don't actually put it on the strings of the traveler's notebook because I take it out whenever I want to fill it in. I just like stick it in the book and close it. And then I use this rubber band thingy that came with a pair of socks to keep it closed, but it likes to fly out of the notebook whenever I pick it up. So maybe not the best approach. An ice cream truck is going by, which is weird because I live in an apartment, but hopefully you can't hear it. Anyway, that is all for 2025. So moving on to 2026. A lot of it is staying the same, but there's some tweaks and adjustments I'm making. First of all, let's start with my planner. So I am going to go back to pocket rings for planning, and that is primarily because of this. I was lucky enough to grab a pocket ranger cover a couple months ago, so I'm really excited to use this and I want to get some good use out of it. So I'm going to switch back to pocket planning in January, and I think I'm going to keep it pretty minimal as well. We'll see where I land on the trackers. I definitely don't think I'm going to go as deep as I had been tracking things in 2025, especially because the rings on this are, I think they're like 15 millimeters, so they're not quite as big as the Moterm, which had 19 or 20 millimeter rings. But I'm just going to use all of the same printables and everything I had and kind of mess around with what I end up including in here. And I'm going to play around with the paper that I use. I actually thought that this would be brown. I didn't know that they made the Ranger in black and brown, so I was anticipating brown, which is silly because it was just me like not reading the full description of the cover, which very clearly stated it was black. So I was a little bit bummed out, but I've adapted since then, and I've come around because it is black and like more cool toned. I really want to use cream paper in here. I think that would just like warm it up a little bit and make it feel a little bit more cozy. So I got what size is it? A 4 sized MD notebook. I guess it's not a notebook. It's like a pad of paper, and I plan to print my inserts on that and see how I feel about that paper. It is thicker than the Kikuyo business paper that I had been using, so we'll have to see how that works out. But because it is so small and this front pocket has a fair amount of space, there's this front pocket with 2 sections, there's some card holders there and a pocket in the back. It has like a fair amount of storage. I might try to use this as my wallet as well. In that case, I wouldn't use the M5 and it could just be like a little all-in-one. But it is a little bit bigger, but it'll still fit in all my bags pretty easily. So that's an option. And I'll do like a full setup video of this pocket planner once it's all set up. That is my plan for pocket rings, but I'm looking forward to having a little bit of a smaller profile planner that I can take with me everywhere I go and not have it like be super heavy or take up a ton of space, because as much as I loved the personal size Ranger, it was chunky. In addition to the pocket rings, I am going to keep using this Me Plus cover. I am just going to tweak how I'm using it a little bit. So as I mentioned, I have a work notes section in here, and essentially this is going to become like a project planner. And I'm going to expand on that work notes section and use it to kind of track and keep track of my ideas, the projects I'm working on, and like next steps for all of the projects that I'm doing. And so I'll get to use this every day at work for like YouTube and the other little jobbies I do. So it's going to be like this section expanded, which I'm really excited about. I think it'll be good. And I really see these 2 books kind of working together in a way. Like this is planning and this is project planning. And then I'll probably take the tasks from the project planning that I actually want to do like that week or that day and put it in the daily planner in the pocket rings. And now for the traveler's notebooks, these are pretty much going to stay the same. No like huge changes planned here. The inserts that I am going to use are, so I plan to use like a long form stream of consciousness journal. these things are already all in there. So stream of consciousness, long form journal, a memory keeper in a weekly format. And I am going to use the Traveler's Notebook vertical weekly undated. And then I also have another undated weekly that I'm going to try out that is horizontal format. I'm going to keep trying with the gratitude log and see if I can get that to click with me. I'm going to keep commonplacing, and I'm going to commonplace more, hopefully. I had been doing reviews, like book reviews, movie reviews, and book notes in a Filofax Sophiano cover that I was using Franklin Covey compact sized inserts for. But I was finding that I would write the review there, but then if there was a section of the book that I wanted to copy down, or a quote that I really liked and I wanted to put it in my commonplace, then it felt like those things were very separate and really I wanted them to be together, because I wanted my thoughts about the book to be with the quotes about the book. I think it makes more sense for it all to just be in the commonplace. The Sophiano, I think I'm going to make it into a recipe book. I really like having printed recipes for some reason. It's so much easier than looking at it on your phone, where you have to scroll down and down to get to the actual recipe. But that is a tangent. Those are all inserts that I already have, and I'm going to continue to include in my system. There is one new one that I want to add. Let me see if I can find an example. So this is one of my journaling inserts, because it is long form journaling. I guess I didn't fill it up that quickly, but I started this on January 11th, 2025, and I finished it May 20th, 2025. I was including special occasion journaling in here, if that makes sense. So I have some travel journaling and some journaling about a concert I went to in here. I really like these spreads, and they're super cute, but they kind of get lost in here because the rest of the notebook is purely just writing. So I want to take these pages out of this notebook and kind of have a dedicated insert for special occasion journaling, travel journaling, any special moments like that I want to remember. Iceland was pretty cool. So I just think that it would be really cool at the end of the year to be able to see a collection of all of those moments, kind of highlights for the year. And I also think it's fun to print out pictures and include those in there. Also, I made that. So that is the one new insert that I plan to add to my traveler's notebook. Hopefully they'll all fit. I'm going to reorganize the inserts a little bit, and I think if I just add the highlights journal to the brown TN, and I think that everything should fit. Those are my plans for 2026. There are a couple other things I'm considering adding. In my last video, I mentioned this little notebook. This is a Moleskine Pocket Daily for 2026. So it is a dated daily notebook, and it has some teeny tiny little monthlies at the beginning, which are too small to be practical for me. This was a spontaneous purchase, in all honesty, but I am very intrigued by the pocket size. Overall, I've only ever used Passport, which it's a little bit wider and a little bit shorter compared to this. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to use this for. I might try doing daily journaling in it. I might try the gratitude thing in here. I also want to get a 5-year journal, and if I end up getting that a little bit later in the year, I might write down my entries in here so that I can backlog them into the 5-year. But yes, I just might use this as scratch notes for each day. But honestly, I'm not that worried about if I don't use it every day. I can just white out the dates or just ignore the dates and use it as a little scrap notebook. I also think I'm going to put googly eyes on it, which I'm excited about. Oh, I also really want to try to make a leather cover for it. I have become mildly obsessed, and I'm trying so hard not to buy a whole bunch of leather making equipment. So we'll see how long I end up lasting. Yeah, and like I said, the 5-year journal is another thing that I am considering adding to my lineup. Most likely that would be the Hobonichi A6 5-year journal. If anyone has used that and enjoyed it or not enjoyed it, I would love to hear your thoughts. I think it would be super cool to see how your entries kind of build on each other over time and how a journal develops over such a long time period. The only thing is that because it is such a long time period, it feels a little bit intimidating. I don't think that it would have to be something I did every single day, but every few days or something like that. Also, this is kind of random, but I was tempted by the idea of a bound notebook this year for a planner. Something this size. Sterling Ink makes a pocket. I get so confused with the Pocket Passport thing. I think it's Pocket. planner that, well, Sterling Ink makes Passport anyway, so that's confusing, but they have a pocket version that has like a normal sized monthly and weekly and daily pages. So that's tempting. Plus I could make a fun little leather cover for it, but I'm trying to not do that. I also thought about getting a Hobonichi Weeks Mega, which was one of my favorite planners back in the day. I don't know, for some reason picking which notebooks I was going to use this year was like very stressful. So in the midst of all that stress, for some reason rings felt like a really like high bar, like I'd have to do all this printing and cutting and it would be a whole thing. But then I realized it's fine. I can do it. And I don't want to buy like things that I'm not going to end up using. So we're going to use what I have, and then if for some reason that doesn't work out, I can pivot. But all of that being said, that leads me to my final point, which is kind of like a disclaimer that I am not like holding myself to using these notebooks throughout the year, and I think it's totally fine if your notebook or planner system evolves and changes over time, and if the way that you plan on using it isn't working out for you, or whatever. I think it's totally okay to change the way that you're using it, to change what you're using it for, or to try something else. So part of my system, like the Traveler's notebooks and the Rings notebooks, they are so flexible, and that's something that I really appreciate about them. And if something isn't working, totally fine to change it and just switch to something else. This is where I'm starting in 2026, and we'll see where I end up. Anyway, I think that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I would love it if we could talk about you guys' 2026 lineups in the comments. I would love to know what everyone is using. If you're excited to get into it, maybe you started already in December. Let me know how it's going. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Bye.